search of an Eldorado, and a lot of cities in Brazil were founded by Madeirenses. Well, world history of Bandeirantes of São Paulo is the commercial history of Brazil. The side doctor, the citation side, the side of well-known writers, so moving, Rui Barbosa, the bachelor. We can't afford not being doctors. Country of anonymous doctors and pains. Pain in Portuguese means dor, and pains, dores. And then this pun with doctores and dores, a country full of doctores, anonymous doctores, and full of dores. Such was the empire, everything going the erudite way, language without archives, without erudition, natural and neologic, the millionaire contribution of all eras, how we talk, how we are. Well, from the Anthropophage Manifesto, we have, but we never assumed the birth of logic among us. Against Father Vieira, the author of our first loan, to get a commission. Vieira left the money in Portugal and brought us his vain orator. To balance out the religious feeling of the meridian and the external inquisitions. See this, the word orator, and in Portuguese, he say labia. But it's curious to see in the two most important texts, the most impressive, of Oswald de Andrade, the man who started the modernism in Brazil, the reference to Rui Barbosa and Antônio Vieira, two symbols of the Brazilian rhetoric because of the theory, but also the Brazilian orator because they are very well known speech orators in Europe. We know today that the critique of two symbols of Brazilian rhetorical culture and of influence of colonial Jesuit education is complex, because Oswald de Andrade had strong European influence, having studied in Paris and had contact with avant-garde artistic movements. But at that point in time, this anti-rhetoric reinforced cultural and government measures which favor a nationalist that also want to jettison the classical legacy. In 1937, the Ministry of Education began to coordinate the cultural and educational activities of the country, encompassing schooling of all levels and types. With respect to classical studies, until the middle of the 20th century, Latin was much more commonly a part of obligatory curriculum of secondary school than Greek. In 1962, with educational policies increasing in favor of the technological, class and science were dissolved, and in this reform the humanities lost their space. Greek, Latin, French, and Spanish were removed from the obligatory curriculum. With small circumstantial alteration, the situation has remained the same until the present, which means that Greek and Latin are restricted to the universities. From the end of the military dictatorship, was until 1986, until the present, there has been a great expansion in the provision of higher education throughout Brazil. Concerning classics, in 1984, Professor Jacinto Brandão, a lecturer in Greek language at the Federal University of Minas Gerais, remember, Federal University was in fact the first university in Brazil, despite the fact that by decree, the University of Rio de Janeiro was created first. This professor organized the first National Congress in Classical Studies in Belo Horizonte. This Congress was a point of departure for the foundation in 1985 of, united for the foundation of the Brazilian Society for Classical Studies. The society has promoted exchange between lectures in different Brazilian institutions, as well as between Brazilian institutions and other American and European institutions. Today, 25 years afterwards, the Brazilian Society of Classical Studies continued to be very active, and in 2004, it hosted a meeting in the International Federation of Classical Studies. This has resulted in the appearance of a numerous publications in the area of Greek-Roman rhetoric. Last year, during the meeting of the Brazilian Society of Classical Studies, a group for the promotion of the rhetorical studies was created. Well, this happened last year after I met René in the meeting in Montreal, the meeting of the International Society for the History of Rhetoric. And since 2005, when I met Professor Gerardo Ramirez in the International Society for the Classical Studies in Los Angeles, we start talking about the creation of a Brazilian Society for Rhetoric. But it's curious because this happened inside the inside the Society for the Classical Studies. And Professor Jacinto, who I mentioned a moment ago, continues to participate in the organizing commission of the Society for the Rhetoric, alongside some new members, of which I am one. But you see, the rhetoric still continues very related to classical studies, despite the fact that we want to promote and invite a lot of people who work, scholars who work with rhetoric and with discourse analysis from other areas. The survival of rhetorical studies depends on the work of a number of academics working at universities in the more developed regions of the country. And as these universities are public and financed by federal and state governments, they are always dependent on the sensibility of governments to recognition of the relevance of the humanities. In this sense, theoretical research work continues to be tied to practical works in defense of the importance of the area. Recognition of the relationship between orator, education policies, and the study of rhetoric, or even better, of different rhetorical theories, in the history of Brazil is a way of helping to defend the presence of the subject as an area of study. I hope to have given you an idea of this field and the problems we have to deal with in studying. Thanks so much.